Hello, this is our final debate for our high school intro class 2024 through 2025. On the pro, we have Max and Angie. On the con, we have Greg and Tej. First speaker is the pro, so first speaker, stand on up and you can lead us off.
Querying affirms. Contention 1 is air pollution. First, Trump's recent rollback of EPA regulations will only increase air pollution. According to Drugman 25th, who wrote that Americans face increasing deaths due to Trump's sweeping rollback of air quality regulations, including standards for soot on coal-fired power plants. Second, increased federal nuclear investment will use small modular reactors to replace coal reactors. According to Bao February 25th, who wrote that Secretary Wright will choose how his agency will invest in nuclear energy. SMRs will replace coal plants and use existing infrastructure. And finally, replacing U.S. coal power plants will save 40,000 lives yearly. According to Henneman 23, U.S. coal EGUs over the past 2 decades was 460,000 extra deaths, over 22% of total PM2.5 mortality. The health benefits by shutting coal facilities completely. Contention 2 is desalination. First, water scarcity is rampant and will only increase. According to Sudha Muthu wrote in January 1st that by 2030, 50% of global population will face significant water scarcity. However, desalination meets less than 2% of demand, and large-scale production and availability are barriers. Second, increased federal nuclear investment will create the manufacturing base necessary to export small modular reactors. According to Bauer, February 25th, says that if the Secretary makes a significant investments, he will focus on SMRs in creating a new reactor option deployed by U.S. utilities and other nations. And third, U.S. SMR manufacturing investments ensure global SMR adoption. The International Trade Commission wrote in 2024 that for SMRs to occur, establishing a sustained supply chain for manufacturing is critical for widespread adoption. Fourth, SMRs are key to global desalination projects. Sudha Muthu wrote in 2025 that desalination removes the salt from seawater to make it clean. Small reactors do not prioritize electricity, producing solely for desalination, and 60% of the heat is discharged from a nuclear reactor is utilized. Mass production and barriers to high energy consumptions are key to desalination. Fifth, global desalination can save millions of lives per year. Nair wrote in 2024 that every drop of water helps the water scarcity. It contributes to waterborne diseases, which annually results in the deaths of 2 million people. Desalination ensures reliable water at a lower cost. Sixth, SMRs avoid any cons to nuclear energy. Nuclear Energy Agency wrote in 2024 that SMRs build on 70 years of experience to enhance safety. Smaller cores with smaller nuclear material, accident-tolerant fuels, low pressures, and passive safety systems. SMRs enable variable renewable energy while maintaining supply. SMRs switch between electricity and heat generation. Its compact size and simplicity improve constructability, reduce manufacturing time, and are more affordable upfront. Nuclear has proven solutions to manage fuel and waste for decades. Deep geological repositories are safe and effective. SMRs fuels can be reused. And seventh, investments will solve desalination harms. Moner January 20th writes that solutions to address brine improve infrastructure, reusing brine enhance plant efficiency. Brine prices is not a technically compact newer desalination plants were less polluting. We monitored these plants and found no significant environmental impact. The real issue is in the lack of investment. And finally, investment can solve other harms. Leo 23 writes that innovation will support nuclear energy and is already playing an essential role in enhancing performance, safety, and life of reactors. IAEA Grossi said that enabling investment for a new project means an uphill battle. Innovations such as AI, robotics, and 3D printing advance nuclear power. And for those reasons, Querying affirms. Thank you.
I'm Greg, and I'll be doing the second affirmative negative speech for the Querying. Okay, time starts on my first word. 3, 2, 1. Contention 1, meltdowns. Contention 1 is meltdowns. First, investment will double nuclear power plants, IEA, in January. Per year in APS, investment hits 120 billion. Nuclear capacity more than doubles. Large reactors capture majority of investments. In advanced economies, nuclear capacity rises thanks to new plants. Second, this makes US meltdowns inevitable. Row 16. Authors analyze all past core melt incidents and estimated a failure rate of 1 per 3,704 reactor years. Analysis showed no learning effects. Overall probability 70%. The US with 104 reactors has a 50% probability of experiencing one core melt accident within the next 25 years. Third, meltdowns are empirically proven. Jacobson 24. To date, 1.5% of all nuclear power plants ever built have melted down to some degree. Either catastrophic Chernobyl, Fukushima, a 3 Mile Island, St. Laurent Friends. The nuclear industry, new designs are untested. No guarantee design, built, and operated correctly. Or a natural disaster or terrorism will not cause a disaster. Fourth, Trump circumvents quality control, increases meltdown risks. Camacho, February 24. Trump's radically alter nuclear projects, putting speed above safety. The country's only reactors built this century were massively over budget and behind schedule. NRC sets the rules for safety of nuclear plants. Idea of NRC infected with the president's preferences deeply troubling because of safety implications. Fukushima is an example of weak regulatory enforcements and the industry-government collision. Fifth, meltdowns are the worst disaster. Fairwinds 22. A nuclear meltdown is the worst-case scenario, causing widespread release of a deadly radiation into the environment that could spread hundreds of miles and lead to cancer and death. Meltdowns isn't as singular as it's with the disasters. The effects lay down for hundreds of years. Finally, each meltdown empirically causes 27,000 cancer deaths, grounded to 11. Results from Chernobyl on the date of 27,000 are a number of excess dead and more. On inflation. First, increased federal investment in nuclear investment will cost trillions. Brown 23. A recent Princeton study estimated lowest cost scenario involves a substantial nuclear build program and investment to support this. Total more than $1 trillion. This increases inflation by 20% over 3 years. Beach 24. A government borrowed heavily in 2021 and fueled rise in prices by 19.7% in just 3 years. Adding trillions of deficit dollars, all explanations of inflation fail, and includes supply chain, price gouging, and MMT. Finally, the stats over 11,000 deaths per year. Cases 2024. 340 million population, the female 50.5%. The contention 3 is circumvention. First, government investment will pick losers. Deruggi 15. A list of federal missteps include clean coal, SFC, Clinch River, and National Ignition Facility, super colliders and future gen PNGV, Freedom Car, and Yucca nuclear waste mess. Subsidized distorting economic activity. Subsidized firms gets an unfair competitive advantage. Policymakers picks losers. This distortion generates losses. Policymakers possess no special knowledge and to allocate capital more efficiently than markets.
Process?
Yeah.
Okay, since I was the first speaker, I get the first question.
Sure.
So, can you just explain how exactly inflation results in deaths?
Well, inflation is when things cost more, right? So, the amount of money that people have doesn't change. And so if you need more of the same money to purchase something, naturally people who cannot afford it and who don't earn enough money can die, right?
Sure, okay. You have a question?
How do you know that SMRs are capable of all that you mentioned? Desalination and provide all the world with clean water.
Well, desalination, the definition of desalination is that it removes salt from seawater, so making it clean water that people can drink, right? So naturally, this would result in, clean water for people to drink, and it would solve water scarcity. It's did you ask that how SMRs will
Yeah,
cause
because
desalination?
these still haven't been, they're still only in experimental phase, right? None of them have actually been built in like any commercial usage.
Okay, so the thing is that the process of desalination takes a lot of energy to work, and nuclear plants naturally produce a lot of waste heat, and that waste heat can be directly repurposed into something that can power desalination, and that like nuclear power desalination projects can be really easily implemented into already pre-existing infrastructure. So it's not even like it needs new infrastructure to work, right? So it's cost effective and it's time effective. Does that make sense?
Yeah, you can have the next question.
Okay, so can you, on your circumvention argument, can you just explain a bit on how how government investment will pick losers, as you said?
Well, so under the Trump administration, basically, as I said, Trump, like the past projects that have been built, they have all been rushed for speed over reliability, right? And so they're not exactly quality, and they're way over budget, and everything that was calculated, how much it would cost, how long it would take to build, everything went over, and basically what they were saying is the government's unpredictable and usually doesn't end very well.
Okay, and can I just have a quick follow-up?
Sure.
Then can you explain how that causes inflation? Because that's your second argument.
Well, it takes longer to build something, then it takes more money to build something. And so the government would need more money, would lead to inflation.
Okay, sure. You can take a question.
Do you have statistics showing the environmental impact of the SMRs?
SMRs? Well, we're saying that SMRs don't cause that many environmental impacts.
Yeah, but do you have like any statistics
Uh,
to prove that?
well, that's one of our cards here. I can just pull it up for you. But, well, there's no statistics because it doesn't exactly cause environmental impacts. If you want the card, I can send it to you after the class is done. Oh,
Thank
let's
you
go
so
back
much.
to
Next
next.
speaker.
Just for the judge's clarification, my name is Maxwell. I'm the second speaker on the AF side. This is a 4-minute rebuttal speech, and we'll begin on my first word. Is anyone not ready? Okay. My time will begin in 3, 2, 1. Judge, first I'd like to move on to their first contention of meltdowns. 1. SMRs are safe. The Nuclear Energy Agency 24 says that small reactors means less risk, less explosive fuel, lower pressures, and passive systems. 2. Nuclear power plants meltdowns only increase cancer risk by 0.1%. Gale 21. The average American is exposed to about 6 millisieverts of radiation per year. The average dose from Chernobyl is about 10 MSV, equivalent to living to 3 years in LA. Sources without credentials predict millions of cancer deaths. 35 years after Chernobyl, there were 7,000 excess cancers, and most were not fatal. Other cancers have no data in increasing, and data suggests that the increase was relatively small. 40% of us will develop cancer. Even if there were increases from Chernobyl radiation, it would be less than 0.1%. 3. Alternative energy plants produce more radiation. Gale 21. It put Chernobyl in the context of other alternatives. Burning fossil fuels releases more radiation in the environment per kilowatt of energy generated than a nuclear power facility. Mining to provide pipes for solar power stations brings more radiation. Constructions of dams cause thousands of bladder cancer. 4th, meltdown risk low and is decreasing. Simon 19. Data shows that nuclear plant accidents are low and declining. Fiverr wrote that a future of 1,000 reactors would be faced with a 1% chance. There have only been 3 major accidents, Chernobyl, Fukushima, and 3 Mile, and occurred over 17,000 reactor years. The world has certainly learned from its past mistakes, and no reactors are like Chernobyl, and operators are now much more prepared. 5. Low-level radiation is good. David 21. The current paradigm assumes that any radiation carries some risk. We examined background radiation and covered the entire United States population. Life expectancy was 2.5 years longer in people living in areas with a relatively high versus low background radiation. A decrease in cancer for lung, pancreas, and colon, brain, and bladder. Exposure has clear beneficial health, and hormonic effects provide clear indications for reconsidering this thing. Now onto their inflation contention. 1. Nuclear energy only replaces old, inefficient coal power plants and is cheaper than the renewables only approach, which means a net benefit for the economy. 2. SMRs are cheap. The Nuclear Energy Agency says they're simpler construction, faster manufacturing, and less capital costs. 3. Nuclear energy increases GDP. Jobs and cheaper electricity gains induced growth. Martin 24. U.S. nuclear industry provided approximately 19% of electricity. Altogether, indirect and direct, the contribution totaled 256,000 workers and $63.8 billion of GDP, and generated $15.9 billion in taxes. Nuclear power also decreases energy prices, which lowers inflation. Rule 24. The Advanced Nuclear Deployment Act reduces barriers for nuclear technology. Increasing production of energy will lower your energy bill and help reduce inflation. And 4. Deficit spending doesn't increase inflation. Horsley 19. The governments like the United States don't have to worry about spending. Runaway prices are only a danger when demand outstrips real resources in the economy. If there's idle capacity, additional government spending will not trigger inflation. Powell acknowledged that the U.S. job market has shown more capacity to grow without sparking inflation than he and his colleagues had expected. Now onto their circumvention argument. I have 2 responses. 1, no link. Trump appointed Energy Secretary Wright, who publicly supports the plan. And evidence says that this replaces SMRs and develops manufacturing, which is important Trump aim. 2, the resolution asks whether the United States federal government should, not the United States government would, increase nuclear investment. And Trump is part of the United States federal government. This means what we should debate as if Trump supports nuclear energy. Otherwise, neg always wins, as Trump wouldn't support nuclear energy. Thus, for these many reasons, we proudly affirm. Thank you.
Hello, Judge. I'm TH Nair. I'm the second speaker for the neg team. My time starts in 3, 2, and 1. So they say meltdown risk is low, but there's still a probability of it occurring. The app is ignoring this factor. Our impact is a greater magnitude compared to their uneducated guess. They keep saying that SMRs are better than alternative renewables, but they never say why they are better. Why are they better than alternative renewables? You guys have to state that. And then extend meltdowns. Increased investment would double the number of U.S. nuclear power plants, and Trump will pick losers with unsafe safety records. Both dramatically make meltdowns 50% likely within a decade. Meltdowns outweigh. On probability, each meltdown causes 27,000 deaths. This is only statistically validated prediction in this debate, whereas their impact is just a guess, which is too far speculative and long term. And then B, causation. Meltdowns destroy public support, which prevent long-term nuclear power adoption. And now, Bay 20 says, after an accident, public support for nuclear energy in the U.S. fell from a record high of 69% in 1977 to 46% in 1979. The next plant would not be built for more than 30 years, and then today's support remains lukewarm. As a result of the accident, anti-nuclear movements sprang up all over the globe. And now extend private investment. Currently, private banks and tech are investing in nuclear energy up 13 times, but government investment will crowd it out because it will distort market competition, pricing them out of business. And we have 2 impacts from this. We have the status quo solves, which is current private investment is sufficient for nuclear energy, and then the app is less nuclear energy, and the government will pick losers which provide less cheap and reliable. They have less reliable and cheap energy, and many will collapse, preventing any energy transition. And now on the economy, crowd out turns economy. Lesser 23 subsides distort energy markets. They will crowd out more productive private investment, and subsides result in higher energy prices, which will cause economic losses throughout the entire economy. And these losses will far exceed the gains by the subsides. Thus, the net economic impacts will be negative. And now, the status quo is already increasing investment substantially, so there's no reason to increase it more, because they were previously saying, oh, we should increase investment more and more, but we're about to prove why we shouldn't invest we can't increase our investment anymore. So Lean 24 says that nuclear energy is producing 1/5 of America's electricity, and there's been renewed interest with new private sector investments and legislative support. Several large tech companies invested, and the Advance Act was passed earlier this year. And then the Advance Act lowers regulatory compliance costs and removes barriers and reduces the hourly rate fee from $300 to $160. And the average time is 90,000 hours, and the reimbursement of the application fee is to accelerate process for licensing, sitting, and constructing advanced reactors. And if you loosen restrictions for this investment, the Inflation Reduction Act of 2022 included multiple tax subsidies for nuclear power plants. And successfully implementing Advance Act is to lower costs and remove regulatory barriers, which would help accelerate the development of nuclear energy. And nuclear energy is likely to become more useful. The new generation offers more promising prospects, and the few years will be critical as the executive branch implements the Advance Act. And now, inflation turns this deficit, raised prices, including energy. This inflation outweighs whatever little gain they produce. And now, private investment turns the economy. So, Lesser 23 says the subsets will distort energy markets. They will crowd out more productive private investment. And the subsets will result in higher energy prices, which will cause economic losses throughout the entire economy. These losses will far exceed gains provided by the subsets. Thus, the net economic impacts will be negative. And then the nuclear. Wait, isn't it
4 minutes.
Because I still have 1 minute 35. Okay, so the nuclear desalination. So already desalination now an investment increasing. So in 2015, 19,000 desalination plants worldwide. Half in the Middle East. Were in the cumulative investment. So and it was 21.4 billion in 2015, and then by 2024 it grew to 48 billion, showing annual growth of 17.6%. And the feasibility of nuclear desalination has been proven with over 150 reactor years of experience in Kazakhstan, India, and Japan. Deployment depend on economic factors. And then on air pollution, PM2.5 already decreasing and cannot solve the largest cause. And Greenstone 24 says the U.S. saw a significant reduction in PM2.5 levels by 22% from 9.1 in 2023 to 7.1% in 2024. And then, while pollution control has significantly reduced emissions from fossil fuel power, the generation no decrease from vehicles and biomass burning, a significant obstacle to improving air quality. The EPA lowered PM2.5 standards to 9.0 legally enforceable air quality limits. Uranium mining increased PM2.5. BK21 says Navajo Nation and the uranium mines were once active, and the windblown dust from one mine sites have been a specific concern. As a component of air pollution, PM has been linked not only to one respiratory toxicity but also to other pathological and psychological disorders. And with that, we negate.
Okay, so it is crossfire now. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Alright, perfect. Begin now. So, may I have the first question?
Yes.
So, could you please repeat to me what your 3 contentions were?
Yes, so the first contention was on meltdowns. The second one was on inflation,
And what's the third one?
air pollution.
Air pollution?
But not air pollution. So
Do you mean circumvention?
yes, but we stopped talking about circumvention.
Okay,
We're collapsing on meltdowns and inflation.
Yeah, can I finish my question?
Yes.
Okay, so you say that private investment is also one of your contentions?
Yes.
You can't just add a contention in your
No, we did not add a contention. We talked about it before because it's our rebuttal on you guys talking about investment.
Could you tell me where you said that before?
Okay, so we didn't say it before. It's not a contention. It's an extra card.
So you're just using private investment as a card?
Yes, it's not a contention.
That's my question.
Okay, so can you give me examples of why SMRs are better than the alternative renewables?
Yeah, I've given many reasons. First, SMRs are smaller. They use less fuel. They're also safer. They contain less explosive fuel. They are cheaper to make. They are faster to make. They produce heat and electricity used for desalination and can replace coal power plants. They are far more efficient than whatever the neg can suggest.
How can you be so sure about that?
We have evidence supporting this. Also, Secretary of Energy, Wright, has already supported SMRs, and we also have evidence saying that SMRs actually will help desalination.
But
Does that answer your question?
no, because the alternative renewables that can be suggested, such as instead of using nuclear energy to power the reactors, what if we used other renewables? Like the other renewables are also sufficient.
You also failed to answer this, but I said that alternative plants cause more radiation, yet you didn't answer this card. Alternative plants are simply not effective enough. SMRs are way cheaper. As Renewables lead to many different problems, including overbuilding and lack of public support. They also cause cancer, as building dams or mining for pipes for solar power plants actually cause more cancer than nuclear radiation.
Yes, but why would you guys care about cancer now if you guys were saying that meltdowns won't occur? But meltdowns cause 27,000 deaths, and you guys were completely ignoring that factor, saying, "Oh, it's not going to happen." But how can you be so sure?
Actually, we read multiple cards stating that nuclear meltdowns will actually not happen. Will you allow me to reread those cards?
Yes, please.
Okay, Simon 19 says that data shows that nuclear power accidents are low and declining. Fierton, a nuclear expert, wrote that in a future with 1,000 reactors, we would be faced with a 1% chance. And there have only been 3 major accidents. Now, I would also like to ask, are there any recent major nuclear meltdowns?
The last one was around 30 years ago.
Okay, sorry.
The off team will be taking prep. We've already started for 10 seconds. We're taking prep. We're taking prep. Yeah, but it's my speech.
No.
It's fine. Oh, it's fine. You can figure it out.
I'm like stopping up. I'm 1 minute 5 seconds. Okay, just for the judge's reference, my name is Anqi Feng, and I'm the first speaker from the outside, and I'm going to be starting my 3-minute summary speech. Starting in 3, 2, 1. Correlate wins this debate because we outweigh. First of all, we outweigh on magnitude. They say that one meltdown causes 27,000 deaths, but fossil fuel pollution causes way more than that, with 40,000 deaths annually per year. And their meltdowns are not happening per year. There's only been 3 cases of major meltdowns, and they confirmed in their crossfire that the most recent meltdown is over 30 years ago. And even so, with air pollution, even 1 year of delay in climate action outweighs the worst case meltdown scenario that they have. So now, moving on to our case. To make this easy, let's focus this debate on air pollution. Extended air pollution, which says that increasing nuclear and investment builds SMRs that replace pre-existing coal power plants, which reduces PM2.5 air pollution from soup. And air pollution outweighs because of 2 reasons: because of probability and time frame. U.S. coal power plants kill 40,000 people per year now, and only statistically validated projection in this debate, where their impact is meltdowns and inflations, which is far too speculative and long term. They say that meltdowns still have a chance of occurring, but modern SMRs are designed with passive safety features that literally physically prevent these meltdowns. And even without power or human intervention, they are able to shut down safely. They say that SMRs are now better, but SMRs have a faster construction, lower cost, and smaller radiation zones. Nuclear Energy Agency 2024 and BAO 2020 both showed that SMRs are still better and are cost effective and time effective. And as I mentioned in my last crossfire, SMRs are also able to power desalination long term and are able to solve water scarcities. They say that more funding would cause meltdowns, but that is just not true. It funds safer tech and not these outdated reactors that their arguments are based off of. Regulation and innovation are able to decrease risk and not increase it. They see that meltdowns causes 27,000 deaths, but these 27,000 deaths come from an outdated large reactor models, which are not what SMRs are. SMRs have not caused a single death or meltdown. And plus, fossil fuel pollution kills 40,000 yearly now. Therefore, the app saves far more lives. They say that meltdowns destroy public support and that public support dropped in 1990, but the 1990s are a completely different time. And today, there's a growing support for nuclear power because of climate urgency and safer designs that SMRs provide. They say that public investment will crowd out private investment, but that is just not true. Nuclear and renewables are able to work together. Nuclears are able to fill the gaps that wind and solar cannot. Battle 2020 shows that a diverse energy mix lowers the total cost of decarbonization and that there's no trade-off. They say that inflation turns the economy, but Wind 24 nuclear lowers energy costs, which reduces inflation long term. And nuclear is able to stabilize prices better than these fossil markets. They say that private investments also turns, but Battle 2020 finds that public nuclear investment does not crowd out renewables. SMRs complement solar and wind by providing a baseline power. They say, oh, that's time. Okay, and for those reasons, we covered. Thank you.
Take 1 minute prep. Okay, that was Ready. Time starts with my first word. Okay, the order will be waiting Anqi staircase. Now we win this debate because our argument it has more impact and more catastrophic chain of events if it were to occur. Now onto our case. Let's focus the debate on meltdowns. Extending meltdown, each additional nuclear investment exponentially amplifies its risk because in a world where the U.S. capacity doubles and safety is removed, but meltdowns are a possibility, they're pretty much guaranteed. With Trump's executive order dismantling the NRC independence, safety is forgotten about, unleashing a storm of untested SMRs, rush of the market, quality control gutted, and competition driving quantity over quality. The result isn't just one Fukushima, it's a chain reaction of reactor failures, and every meltdown is a mass casualty event in slow motion. 27,000 cancer deaths, billions in economic losses, radiation zones that sterilize land for centuries, and cascading global panic that destabilizes governments and energy markets alike. These stakes aren't just high, they're apocalyptic. They say that government investments will boost nuclear energy, but government tends to pick losers and prioritize speed over quality, and severely overprice and take an awful long time to actually build anything. Following up on that, the increase in funding will double the amount of nuclear power plants, and the massive chance of meltdowns will also get doubled, and thus guaranteeing an almost 100% possibility of a nuclear meltdown in the next 10 years if it were to happen. They say that the meltdowns increase the cancer risk by 0.1%, but meltdowns themselves in nature are dangerous. As if a meltdown does occur, you have to account the impact it would have on the environment and how massive of area it would make irradiated for centuries afterwards, and the amount of people that would die from the initial explosion of the reactor, not even taking into account the impact of the ecosystem. They say that alternative plants produce more radiation, that alternative plants do not pose a random risk of a nuclear explosion compared to a nuclear reactor. and nuclear reactor danger risks severely outweigh those of alternative plants. And there are other alternatives to nuclear reactors like wind and solar and water power. They say that nuclear power plant meltdown risk is decreasing, but they forgot to take into account the factor of human error. And most of the time, it's people who cause the explosions and not any faulty machinery. And the amount of human error that has been calculated is the same, and it's not decreasing or increasing. And it's predicted that 27,000 will die more based on the severity of the nuclear meltdown. They say that nuclear deployment decrease energy bills, but a decrease in energy bill won't affect anything else other than the energy bill, and the inflation will remain at its current level. Thank you.
Okay, so I'll be taking the rest of my prep, which is currently sits at 1 minute and 5 seconds. Oh, right across. Sorry. Alright. Time will begin now. So may we have the first question?
Sure.
Okay, so you say that will be 100% guarantee of a meltdown in 10 years. What date was this card written?
No, I'm saying if your federal investment were to go through, there would be almost 100% guarantee.
So this is just based off you.
This is based off what you said. On
No,
federal
Where's this
investment.
time?
I'm just asking like where is this 100% and where is this 10 years coming from? Where is this data located, sourced? Has it been tested? Has this data been confirmed? That's what I'm trying to ask.
This data has not yet confirmed because federal investment for nuclear reactors hasn't gotten to the level that you spoke of it.
So this data came from you?
Like, no.
So can I have a name? Could I have a site? Could I have an author?
Camacho.
And from what year?
25.
2005?
No, 2025.
Okay, 2025. Could I actually get that card after process?
Sure.
Thank you. You may have a question.
Would you like to take a question or?
Why do you think that your impact outweighs meltdowns when ours causes over 27,000 deaths a year? And we have
Are you sure it's a year? Do you have statistic evidence showing that a meltdown happens every year, killing 27,000?
not every year, but like the years that meltdowns have occurred, like in
Okay,
Fukushima.
Okay,
so
how-
you're saying that every meltdown causes 27,000 deaths, correct?
Yes, our card is proven
Okay,
to
but-
show that 27,000 deaths occur from each meltdown that happens.
Okay, but the most recent meltdown that you have dated is over 30 years ago, so that's,
No, that was one of the meltdowns. The other one was from Fukushima Daiichi in 2011,
okay, but that's still, what, over like 10 years ago?
10
Well,
years ago.
Our impacts of, like air pollution causes 40,000 deaths per year, so that's,
But wait,
yeah, go ahead.
yeah. So one of our cards says that meltdowns are the worst disaster, and that's our row 16 card.
Okay,
And
well-
what they talk about is that how meltdowns like outweighs every other disaster in terms of magnitude and the amount of deaths that it causes, and like it also has an impact. It has a factor in radiation as well. So like,
alright,
no,
can I say it here? Yeah, so our impact says that it kills air pollution kills 40,000 deaths per year, that's statistically higher than 27,000. So air pollution causes more deaths per year than one meltdown causes, like, what?
But air pollution is easily preventable compared to meltdowns because even with a 1% chance of meltdowns occurring, it still happens almost like every 15 to 20 years, as previously stated before.
Alright, well, can I say something?
Could you send me those cards?
Yes,
Just do the chat.
you're on the dot.
We're on the dot.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Could you please tell me the name?
Row 16.
Rose 16. Okay. So is it makes you this
Row
meltdown-
16 and fair winds 20.
Oh no, I'm talking about the card that states
Camacho, February 14, 2025.
Camacho. How do you spell it?
Camacho, exactly how you hear it.
How do you spell it?
I'm not very good at spelling. Please forgive me.
Camacho.
K.
Camacho. Camacho.
It's not coming up.
Because you're
Well,
looking at the app file.
Okay, can you just send us the
So
card
could you
if
please,
would like?
please do it for me? And I'll just be starting my prep right now. Starting now.
Wow. Almost like it was.
I said K and you said yes.
I said
so.
C.
Alright, that is my prep. This is a 2-minute final focus speech, the last speech on the affirmative side. My name is Maxwell Lee, just for more clarification. For a brief off-time roadmap, the order will be weighing our case and their case. Is anyone not ready? Perfect. My time will begin on my first word. Corey Lane wins the debate because our impacts outweigh. To make this easy, let's focus the debate on air pollution. Extend air pollution. Increasing nuclear investment builds SMRs that replace coal power plants, which reduces PM 2.5. Air pollution. Air pollution outweighs because of probability and time frame. U.S. coal power plants kill 40,000 per year. Now, it is the only statistically validated prediction in this debate, where their impact is meltdowns, which we have stated with data that shows that nuclear power plants do not cause meltdowns, and the meltdown risk are decreasing. Not to mention that we are using SMRs, which are SMRs which are much smaller and easier to manage. Now let's move on to our case. They say that there's a 100% guarantee of meltdown in 10 years, supported by 2025 data by Camacho. However, I've read the card. There's no mention of 100% guarantee or 10 years. Therefore, this data is just null. It just came out of nowhere. They say that and they also said that the earliest meltdown was from 30 years ago. Our technology has increased over these 30 years. Just remember 30 years ago and imagine our technology then. They say that we have alternatives. However, they also fail to remember that alternatives cause more radiation, Gale 21. Mining for coal power plants and mining for solar power plants release more radiation than any nuclear power plant. And dams and the construction of dams leave debris in water and therefore cause bladder cancer. Now, they say that humans cause the errors, and that's the reason for all these meltdowns. However, SMRs are not regulated by humans. They actually have passive systems and are able to be shut down remotely, and if there's any malfunction, they will shut down automatically. Now onto their case. First on meltdowns. Extend our first rebuttal. SMRs are safe. The Nuclear Energy Agency says that small reactors means less risk, less explosive fuel at lower pressures, and passive systems. SMRs are way smaller than any nuclear power plant. That means they have less nuclear fuel. Nuclear fuel is the dangerous stuff. Therefore, there's actually less dangerous stuff. And send our fourth rebuttal. Meltdown risks are low and decreasing. Simon 19. Thus, we urge you to vote F. Thank you.
I'd like to take the rest of the prep. time starts in 3, 2, wait, 1 second. So my time starts in 3, 2, and 1. Judge, what are some time frame, probability, and causation? So collapse on meltdowns. So meltdowns increased investment would double the number of U.S. nuclear power plants, and Trump will pick losers with unsafe safety records, both dramatically make meltdowns 50% likely to occur within a decade. And probability, each meltdown causes over 27,000 deaths. And this is only a statistically validated prediction in this debate, whereas their impact is just people dying from polluted air, which is easily preventable and has a lower magnitude than compared to our impact. Now, causation. Meltdowns destroy public support, which prevent long-term nuclear power adoption. And as we have stated before, U.S. meltdowns are inevitable, and our row 16 card says this. As we have previously stated, the authors analyzed all past core meltdown accidents and estimated a failure rate of 1 per 3,704 reactor years. The analysis showed no learning effects, meaning that this will keep on occurring over and over again. And then the overall probability has increased to almost 70%. The U.S. with 104 reactors has like a 50% chance of experiencing one more accident. And now, as my partner stated earlier, meltdowns are empirically proven. As our Jacobson 24 card says that 1.5% of all of the nuclear power plants have melted down to some degree. And there are incidents such as Fukushima that occurred in 2011, and our opponents don't think that this incident would occur again, even though the last one before that was just 20 years before. And for a 1% chance, I would say that's pretty high to occur every 10 years of a nuclear meltdown disaster to occur. And Judge, you should vote for us because our impact is far greater than the meltdowns are the worst disaster. And in cross-examination, the last meltdown wasn't 30 years ago, it was from 2011 from the Fukushima incident. And for like 1%, that's just such a high probability. And with that, we negate.